Welcome to the Cookbook Club. Today, we're going to announce the cookbook for February. So we started this project where every month I would pick a cookbook and we would cook one recipe a week through the month. So we get a feel for the cookbook. We get a feel for the quality of the recipes, and we get a feel for basically what the cookbook could offer us as home cooks. And this is now our fourth month, and it's February, and it's time for us to talk about the cookbook we're going to be using this month. So welcome to the Amy Learns to Cook kitchen. So I know you're wondering, Amy, what is the cookbook for this month? You might have gotten a hint of that during our last couple of months where I dove in my first cookbook club,
Amy,
and I went right through it. I went right through it, right? So we're coming off of Julia Child, we're coming off of Escoffier, and we're coming back to measurements and easier recipes, right? So this month, the Cookbook Club is the Fannie Farmer Cookbook. Yay! So I know you guys are like, Fannie Farmer? First and foremost, that's a funny name. And who is Fannie Farmer, right? So Fannie was cooking and writing her cookbooks in the very late 1800s and the early 1900s. This is her original cookbook. It is a reprint of that cookbook because I know, this is brand new, I know that I will mess it up. So I don't want to mess up a book from 1896 that, I spill stuff all over. So this is a reprint. So if it's no big deal, right? Because they printed a lot of these. She was born, in the late 1800s, and she had an illness around the age of 16 where she had a stroke or she had polio or something like that, and she ended up not being able to walk. And her parents nursed her back to health where she was just walking with a limp. Well, she ended up going to the Boston cooking school to learn how to be possibly cook in a restaurant, or they were also training housewives to be home cooks. So she went to this cooking school and she totally excelled. She blew everyone out of the water, not only for her cooking, but she's got a lot of leadership skills, right? She takes control of everything. And she graduated, got a job as a faculty member, and worked her way up and ended up being the principal, the head of the school. So as the head of the school, they started writing a book called the Boston Cooking School Cookbook. And that cookbook, they published it under that name. Originally, Little Brown was the publisher, but they didn't think the book really would go anywhere. So they agreed to print 3,000 copies at Fannie's expense. So it's similar to how The Joy of Cooking got off the ground. Irma, she had to pay for the initial publishing, and Fannie had to pay for the initial publishing of this book. So this came before Joy. Joy was like in the 30s, right? This was before Joy. And as soon as this book came off the presses, it was an instant, absolute hit. And now it is in like its 14th edition. I think this is the 14th edition. In Fannie's lifetime, it sold over 3 million copies. That's unreal, given the population of the U.S. at that time, right? So this is an American cookbook. It's solely written for American cuisine. American cuisine was just starting to be recognized as its own thing. It's always been, French, all other areas, but American cuisine was starting to get its own identity. And this is one of the first books. And there's a lot of interesting things in this book that Fannie did, right? In the 70s, the publisher, obviously, Fannie had passed by that time. The publisher wanted to revise it and update it. So in the 70s, the publisher reached out to the one and only James Beard and asked them, James, who should do the revisions of the Fannie Farmer Cookbook? And James Beard had only one response, and it was his assistant, Marion Cunningham. So she wrote the revision in the 70s and then in the 90s. So you will see this book titled at times the Boston Cooking School Book, if you got an original 1896 version. It was rebranded the Fannie Farmer Cookbook, so that's what mine is branded. Later, you're going to see editions that are written by Piers Marion Cunningham. She revised this book for the 70s and the 90s, so it's more updated for our current taste. Some people say, oh, there's not too much difference between these two. I think there's quite a bit of difference. This one has a whole chapter on quick breads that is apparently unbelievable. People have cooked through all the quick breads and they say every single one is a winner. Like the banana bread in here, I really couldn't find that in here. So there's no quick bread. I don't know if quick bread was a thing back then, because it all depends on when like baking powder was really introduced, right? But some people kind of discount this book and say, this is not the real one, this is that. I can tell you, Marion Cunningham in her own was an amazing cook. She worked years and years and years under James Beard. So this book is amazing, and this book is amazing. They're both amazing, and they're both Fannie Farmer, right? So we are going to be making the angel food cake. I looked between the two books, and one issue I had is the angel cake in this one. I don't know what size pan it was made for, because it only has 1 cup of egg whites. In our modern angel food pan, which I'll show you how those look and how they work, they're a 10-inch pan. And the Marion Cunningham volume is written for a 10-inch angel food cake pan, which is what we are using now. And it has 12 to 13 egg whites. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the Marion version of that for this. We're going to be making the angel food. We're going to be making strawberries and whipped cream to go over the top. It's going to be amazing, right? So you ask, why did Fannie Farmer's book become an instant hit? Because as you remember, like we went through with the Scoffier, a lot of recipes were vague in terms of its instructions. It wouldn't necessarily give you exact measurements. And what Fannie did is she came in and said, hey, use a cup, level it off, so it ensures that you will have the success in the recipe that she planned for you to have. It allows you to repeat the recipe in the same way over and over. And it allows you to communicate the recipe to someone else so they are able to repeat it. So she brought standardized exact measurements to these recipes, which pretty much changed how the American cook cooked. She brought in temperatures, right? Someone would say, oh, cook in a moderate oven. Or like a Scoffier wouldn't even tell you what temperature, because he's assuming a lot because you're a chef. This spoke to your average everyday home cook that wanted to learn how to cook, to bring more dishes to their table, and to expand their cooking knowledge. And Fannie did that for us as cooks. also, she sort of brought in a scientific sort of approach to it. At the beginning of the book, there's a lot in here explaining why we do things one way versus the other and how that changes the results. So she pretty much revolutionized cooking. She brought those standardizations, and that's why this book became an instant hit. It was the joy of the time. Every household had this book. And that's where they learned to cook. They learned to cook from Fannie Farmer. And so even though you may not have heard of Fannie Farmer now, she's just as popular because in Fannie's lifetime, they sold 3 million copies. As of now, they've sold 7 million copies of this book. So it's like one of the best-selling cookbooks of all time. It's up there with the big ones, and a lot of cooks that we know learn from Fannie Farmer. So this is the original. This is the Marian Cunningham. We'll be analyzing the recipes between the two, and we'll be cooking from these for the month of February. So cooks, thanks for joining me. I hope you're as excited about diving into Fannie Farmer as I am. If you have this book, pull it out of your library and let's cook from it, right? There are some amazing recipes, and I'm sort of relieved because now I have some real instructions, right? Thank you, and I'm excited for this journey.